We're Ariel.
And Michelle,
and
we're the Board Game Tutors.
Today, we're going to be teaching you Part 3 of Just the Basics for the board game Agricola, All Creatures, Big and Small. Let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
So, in this video, we're going to be going through how a normal turn works. So, as we mentioned before, there are 8 rounds of play in a normal game of Agricola, All Creatures, Big and Small. And those each of those rounds is broken up into 4 different steps, or phases, as they call them in the rulebook. So we're going to show you 2 complete rounds of all of those 4 phases. So, as you can see here, I have the first player marker, so I will be starting first. So, and like I said, so when you first set up the game, obviously, each player has their 3 workers. Michelle has 3 blue, I have 3 red, and we both have 9 borders that we can potentially build. And obviously I have the first player marker. So, we set up the board. We already explained this, so we'll just go over it briefly one more time. So the first step in any round is the refill phase. So we put 1 wood there, 3 wood there, 1 stone, 2 stone, 1 border, 1 reed, 1 pig, 1 horse, 1 cow. So that's all full. So that was the first step of round 1. Now, since I'm first player, I'm going to get my first worker, and I am going to go here and grab 3 wood. So now these 3 wood, I'm grabbing them just a second. I'm grabbing them and putting them next to my other materials and workers, so they go right here. So that was my first step. Now, Michelle, what will your first step be?
So go ahead and put one of my workers next to the 2 stone spot.
Right, 2 stone, so she's covering that space. And whenever you take an action, you can never not take the action that you just went to. So if you go to an action space, you are going to take the resources there or the animals there. So there's Michelle's 2 stone. All right, my turn again. So obviously, this is the second phase. I forgot to mention that, where you just put your workers out. And so I'm putting out my second worker. I am going to go here, where I can build fences using the wood that I have just picked up. So I'm going to spend that 3 wood that I just got, and I'm going to build 3 borders. So I'm going to build a fence there, and a fence there. So I'm just going to straighten this out. And this is a fully enclosed area where I can now store my animals. All right, Michelle, what's your second worker going to do?
Go ahead and put him in the spot where you got 1 wood, 1 stone, and 1 reed.
Okay.
Right there.
Covering up that space. So she gets 1 wood, 1 stone, 1 reed.
I can reach.
So thank you, Michelle. Okay, so here's the 1 reed, putting that in her area. She gets 1 stone. She also gets 1 wood. All right.
Okay.
So that was that. Now it's my turn again. I'm going to use my third and final worker, and I am going to grab an animal at this point. I am going to grab a horse. Why not? So I'm going to grab this horse now. And as you can see here, I'm not going to go into this that in depth, but if I wanted to, I could keep this 1 horse in my cottage area, or I could put it in this fully enclosed area here, because obviously this area has 1 wall here, 1 wall here, 1 wall here, 1 wall here. So you can only keep animals where you have enclosures or buildings. So I'm going to put this horse here in a space that encompasses 1 square and is fully enclosed. You can keep 2 animals in that space. We'll go over that more when we go over how to build walls and fences and buildings. All right, Michelle, what do you want to do with your last worker?
So I'm going to use some of the materials we got and build a stall. Yeah, it's a stall.
Right here?
Right there. So I have 3 stone, and I have 1 reed, so I can pay those in order to build a stall.
Okay, so I'm going to get this, and you can set up your stall. So
okay,
go ahead.
So I take the stall from here. I'm going to put it up here in the corner. So you can see, looking at the stall, I'll be able to put 3 animals there, and it gives me 1 victory point. And up at the top, it shows the 3 stone and the 1 reed that I had to spend in order to get it.
Okay. Would you mind pushing those stone up? I accidentally dropped one on that. Where your worker
this
is.
one. Okay.
Okay. And then push these 2 up too. Right there.
Okay. So these go back up here.
Right, because you paid them and they went to the supply. Oops, I forgot to put my wood in the supply. So, would you put that into the supply for me, Michelle?
Yeah. Oops. Okay. Okay, so that just, when you spend wood, it just goes back to where it originally came from.
Okay. Not back onto the board.
Yeah, back into the waiting area before it goes on the board again.
Okay, so those were all the workers. So step 2 is completed, where we placed our workers on the field. Now, Michelle, we're going to do step 3 now, where we recover all of our workers.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and grab those. So Ariel's are the red ones, so they go back to his area. And then I take my blue workers back and put them in my area.
All right. And then step 4 in a normal round is the breeding phase. So as you can see, first you have to check, do you have any one type of animal and you have 2 copies of them in your farm? So if you look at my board, I only have 1 horse, so no breeding can happen. If you look at Michelle's board over there, there are no animals, so there is definitely no breeding happening there. Breeding only happens if you have 2 copies of the same type of animal. So step 4 gets skipped, basically, during round 1. And that will, I'm pretty sure, almost always happen. There will usually never be breeding in the first round. All right, so that was an example of what happens in round 1. So let's go ahead and start with round 2. So as you can see, I still have the first player marker, so it's still my turn first. Oh, sorry, and I forgot step 1, obviously. This is important. Michelle, would you mind refilling the wood and the stone?
Okay,
and
so
I'll fill everything else.
So we had 3 wood here, and then we also add, even if wood wasn't taken in the first spot here, we still add 1 wood. So basically it starts to build up there if no one took it before. Then I add 1 stone, and then to the 2 stone spot I add 2 stone.
Okay, I will add 1 extra border here because that's how you mark how the rounds are passing. As you can see here, this still has a reed. So Michelle, what do I have to replace it with?
We add a sheep and leave the reed that's there.
Yeah, so that goes there. So there's a reed and a sheep. What happens here?
We add another sheep because it's in parentheses on the board there.
And the pig is still there, so that's why you wouldn't add another pig. Here, there's nothing, so
we add a horse.
Yep, it doesn't want to come over to the board.
And then in the cow spot, since there's still a cow, we add a pig instead of a cow.
So that's how refilling works. So those are all the spaces that are refilled. Even though this space here, right there, smack dab in the middle of the board, gives you 1 of each type of building resource, that never gets refilled during the game.
Yeah, you don't set the resources there, you just go get them from the supply if you go to that spot.
Right. All right. So that was all the refilling that needed to happen on the board. So now we're going to go to step 2, which is workers again. So like I said, I'm still first player, so I'm going to take my first worker and choose an action. So I'm going to go here and take this horse. So I can put 1 horse in my cottage, or like I said, in this 1 square contained area, I can put in another animal because you can have 2 animals maximum of the same type.
Yeah, so they do need to be the same type. Since they're both horses, that works.
Yeah, I couldn't get a pig and put it there, for example. So that is my first worker. So what does Michelle want to do now?
Let's put my worker... I'm going to go to the cow and pig spot because I can put 1 in my cottage and 1 in the stall since they're different species.
Do you care which animal goes where?
Let's put the cow in the cottage and the pig in the stall.
There we go. And the pig will go in the stall. And she could have 3 animals maximum there of the same type. So that works. All right. So back to me again. I'm going to put my second worker... Let's see. I am going to do this. I'm going to make an expansion onto my farm and pick up these 2 borders. So let me grab this. This is added to my supply. So I have 2 extra borders on here. And I'm going to expand my farm. So I have a choice. I could put it on the left or the right. I'm going to put it on the right. So as you can see here, this is a valid expansion, place to put my expansion for my farm because the paths match on the bottom and so do the squares. So that is a valid way of putting an expansion on your board. You can't turn it 90 degrees because that just wouldn't match the path, and basically left or right is viable. All right, Michelle's turn again.
All right, so I think I'm going to go to the spot where the pig and the sheep are, and this will show you something that can happen. So I have a spot for my pig because he can go with the other pig. We're ready. Okay, so I can put up to 3 pigs in this spot, so that pig can go there. Now, I don't have anywhere for my sheep because the cow is taking up the cottage spot and the pigs are in the stall. So the sheep actually is going to run away. I don't get to keep him. So he just goes back to the supply since I don't have a spot for him.
So obviously you want to avoid animals running away from your farm as much as possible, but this would be one instance where you cannot keep this sheep because there is no other place for him to go, so the sheep would go back into the supply over here.
And having 2 pigs is going to benefit me because now they're going to be able to breed at the end of the round.
Right. Okay, so my turn. I am going to, let's see, I am going to, I will just go here where I can get 1 feeding trough for free, and I don't have any wood to build any more feeding troughs, so that's that. But I will take this feeding trough, which just looks just like a little yellow house, and I'm going to put it with my horses. So right here. So a feeding trough, this is just a brief explanation of a feeding trough, but so like I said, in one enclosed space, you can keep 2 animals. A feeding trough basically is a multiplier of 2. So whatever amount of animals you can keep in a given space that is enclosed, a feeding trough multiplies it by 2. So normally 2 animals would fit in this area, but now that I've added a feeding trough for free because of that space, now I do 2 times 2, which is 4. So I can keep 4 animals in that one space.
All right. Now for my last worker, I'm going to have him go get some wood, so I'll be ready to build more fences next turn.
Okay.
So up at the top, the 3 wood.
All right. So Michelle's going to grab 1, 2, 3, if they will cooperate. 1, 2, 3. All right. That's all that. All right. So as you can see, we have no more workers, so we can no longer continue with the worker phase. So now it's back to bringing all of our workers home. Michelle, would you please collect all of our workers?
Okay, so I get my blue guys.
1, 2, 3.
And Ariel gets his red workers back.
1, 2, 3. Thank you. All right, so that was step 3 of a normal round, of round 2 specifically. And now we're going to do step 4, which we can now do. So we look at our boards. We see, do we have 2 animals of the same type on each of our boards? So let's start with me. You look and see I have 2 horses, so that means breeding can happen. And so those 2 horses will produce 1 other horse. Now, like I said, I have a choice about where I want to put this. I'm just going to keep all the horses the same. This guy's going to go eat at the feeding trough with his mom and dad. And so that was adding 1 horse to having 2 horses there. Now, this is something important that you need to know for the game. Whenever you do the breeding phase, which is step 4 of a normal round, no matter how many animals you have, if you have at least 2 of the same type, there will only be 1 child that is produced during the breeding phase. So if you had 8 horses or 10 horses or just 2 horses, you would still only have 1 juvenile horse that is created during the breeding phase. Now, I know it doesn't make perfect sense, but you would quickly run out of animals if for every 2 you would produce 1 child. And there's not really, as you can see here, the space is getting really full as is. So, yeah, you don't want to have so many creatures in the same spot because it'd just be too much of a space issue. And then you have a factory farm on your hand, which is obviously practiced a lot nowadays, but that's not a general practice that you would want to do on your happy little family farm. So that's that. So I got 1 horse. Now let's look at Michelle's.
Okay, so I have just 1 cow, so I won't get any new cows. But since I got 2 pigs, I'm going to have 1 more pig during the breeding phase. And he can fit with the other pigs because I can have up to 3 pigs in that spot.
And another important thing, this pig does not come from the main board during the breeding phase. It always comes from the supply area. So I got my horse from here. Michelle got her pig from here. So that's another important thing that you need to remember.
And something else to know is you're going to choose where to place the animals when you get them, but you can always rearrange your animals at any point, following the rules of what's set up on your board at that time. They don't have to stay in the spot they started out.
Right. So if I wanted to, I could have moved one of my original horses into the cottage, for example. I don't have to keep all 3 in there, but keeping all the same animals in a space that can hold the maximum amount of that type of animal is a wise course of action, because then you're utilizing your space the most effectively. And then you can use this space for another type of animal.
So once buildings are put in place, they don't move, but animals can change places.
And the same thing for walls as well. We'll go over all this in depth, but walls and buildings and feeding troughs never move once you place them on your board. So you have to think carefully about where you want to stick a particular type of building, wall, feeding trough, etc.
All right.
All right. So that was the last phase of round 2. So now, as you can see, I have 3 horses. Michelle has 3 pigs and 1 cow. So even though she didn't acquire any animals during round 1, she acquired 4 animals at the end of round 2. So obviously she's doing a little bit better than me, as is. And so this is an example of how the first 2 rounds of a game of Agricola, all creatures big and small, might go. And so now you know, as you've seen us play out 2 rounds, how the 4 different phases go. And make sure you do your best to remember all the 4 phases and don't skip them. Try to remind each other what all the 4 phases are. And yeah, if you guys have any comments, questions, concerns, or clarifications, please leave us a message, send us an email, and we'll be happy to respond to that as soon as we possibly can. We really appreciate all of your patronage and watching our videos and enjoying them as well. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel, The Board Game Tutors, or on the Board Game Geek website, where we're known as the Board Game Tutors as well, one word. And yeah, we appreciate all of your patronage.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.
All right, see you later, guys. Bye.
Bye.